Hey there, thanks for stopping by my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. So today we're going to be doing some no-line watercoloring. I'll be using Arch's 140-pound cold-pressed watercolor paper, a Honeybee Oh My Whiskers stamp set, and I'm going to stamp my images with some Ranger distress ink and antique linen. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my paper into my Tim Holtz stamp positioner, and then I'm going to pick some kitties that I want to use on my card. I'm going to do 3 kitties and 3 butterflies to decorate my card with, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp them with my antique linen distress ink. I go ahead and stamp it a couple of times just so you can see it really well in the video. As long as you can see the images, you only need to stamp it once. I probably would have only stamped it once if it was just me, but because I wanted you to see it, I went ahead and did it twice just so it'd be really dark. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put the colors I'm using up there in the left-hand corner of the screen so you can see what I'm using, because I only showed you there for a quick second at the front. I am speeding the video up because it took me over an hour to color these little guys, and I know you don't want to sit here and listen to that forever or watch me do that. So the brush I'm using currently is a Princeton Velvet Touch No. 3 round, and what I'm doing is I'm dipping my brush into my raw umber paint, and I'm just picking up a little bit and drawing a line on my images, and then I'm rinsing my brush off, and I'm kind of dabbing the excess water off on a paper towel, and then I'm using just the little bit of water I have on my brush to make that ink go out onto my images. And I'm kind of moving around here because I want them to dry. Even though I'm not using very much water, I still need to practice a little bit more, so I got more water on there than I wanted, and so it needs to dry a little bit before I come back to the next kitty. Otherwise it bleeds and runs out onto the image, and I don't really want that effect this time. I'm going to be trying to keep it a little bit more contained. So here I am doing the third kitty. I just put a little bit of dark ink at the bottom, and then I use my water to spread him up so it's towards the top of my cat. Then since I now can go back to the first one and do that one again, I'm just going the same thing. I'm just drawing over the edge of the line with my darkest paint on my paintbrush, and then rinse the brush off, and then I come back with just the water on my brush and I dilute that paint out onto my kitty. I'm trying to go over keep my darkest color of the raw umber on just on the line so that you will be able to see where the kitty is when we're all done. Then I decided that maybe I had way too much water going on, so I switched to a Princeton No. 1 round brush. It's a lot smaller and holds a lot less water. I still have to dab it off on the paper towel after I rinse it, but it seemed to work a little bit better with the water situation. It's not very big, so it's not going to pull out the color forever and ever. So it's going to be a little bit, it took me a little bit to get used to it just being so small. I'm used to having a little bit bigger brush that I can wipe stuff around with, but it definitely helped with having way too much water on my paper. I was able to rinse the brush off, dab it a little bit on my paper towel, and then just use that little bit of water on the brush to wipe it around. I actually had to sometimes go and get the brush wet again, and then use that little bit of extra water I picked up to drag that paint out into the middle of my kitty's facial features and their belly and stuff. Some of them are a little bit bigger. Even though the images are not very large, the brush that I'm using just doesn't hold that much water, so I had to dip it again and then wipe it off and then start over. So I'm just continuing with my raw umber, and I'm making my way across each kitty, kind of darkening them up, letting them dry in between each coat, and then dragging that color out. I left the inside of the ears and their paws white because I'm going to come back and leave them till last or closer to the end so that they don't get too dark. I was afraid I would get a little bit too heavy-handed and put too much color. And there I went over that kitty, and did you see how I didn't let it dry, so the paint bled out onto his belly and caused some feathering that I didn't want. So I just wiped it up with my paintbrush, and then we'll go ahead and let that dry. Here we'll go back and we'll add another coat to the first kitty. This time I decided I would start up there at his ear and kind of darken up at the top of his head, and then some of his body down here on the side so that it wouldn't be quite so dark. And he's going to have a little bit of shadows underneath his chin there, so I went ahead and gave him like a little V of color down the middle of his body so that it would look like he had a little tuft of different colored hair on the front of his chest there. This kitty was looking pretty sad with his face, so I decided to darken him up. We're going to go ahead and darken up his tail and around over the top of his leg. I'm trying to keep that kitty where his leg goes up a little bit lighter on the top of his leg, since it'll be catching the light a little bit compared to his body that is kind of bunched up. Then I definitely decided that I needed to have a little bit more contrast on his face, so I'm just darkening that up. And again, I'm going in and just on the front of his face there, I went ahead and added that line completely around so that we would be able to tell that that was the edge of the kitty when we got all done. We do the same thing down here on his body. I'm kind of darkening that up. I probably should do a little bit of defining of that front paw there, because his leg is going to, it's not really showing right now, but you can see a little bit more of his leg on the stamp. So I'll have to come in here in a little bit and maybe give it a little brush of extra color so that it will define the shadows where his leg is stopped and his belly starts. There I'm just adding a little bit of color to his paws so we can get those started. Same with this little guy. And I did go in this time and I gave him a little bit of the lines for his little feet in between his little claws there. I went ahead and added those in onto his paws so that they would be able to see those. Same for this one. I'm just going now and adding all those little details, kind of darkening up my edge line on a few of the lines, not all of them, but I'm going in and darkening it a little bit so that we can definitely see all those lines. Here we're going to add this paw in, and then we're going to go around some of these areas and add a little bit more definition so we can see it when it gets all finished up. I decided his ears were looking a little funky here, so I decided to add a few little flicks of color, and now I'm going to start with my Quinacridone red and add a little bit of cheek tone on there so they can have some pink cheeks. Kitties don't have to have pink cheeks. I just thought that I would go ahead and give them some pink cheeks so they look a little bit more fun and festive. Everything I guess I do ends up with having a pink cheek, and then I just dabbed. I had too much on there, so I went ahead and dabbed my brush in my water and then dried it off a little bit and dabbed some of that extra color off of those pink cheeks. I wanted them to be pink but not bright red. So now we're going to hop down here, and I think we're going to start, with Naples yellow on our butterflies. I'm going to go ahead and color the butterflies all the way in with the yellow. I'm making sure that I use the concentrated color on the edges of the butterfly, so all around on where the lines were stamped, and then I'm just using the water to bring the color into the middle of my butterflies. I'm not making them too fancy because they are pretty small and they're not, I don't want them to be the focal point of my cards, so I'm just coloring them in quickly, and then I want the kitties to stand out more. So there I'm adding it to the outsides, and then I'm just using water to drag it to the middle. This one I'm going to go ahead and color all the wings in all the way. And then I'm going to go and add a little bit more shadows on my butterflies because he was looking all the same color. So I'm going to go ahead and dab a little bit more color where I want the shadow to be, and then erase it a little bit with the water where I don't want it to be. Now we're going to use Payne's Gray to add all of our details in on our kitty. So the noses, the little mouth, all of the little lines for his whiskers and his eyes. For me, when I do the painting of the whiskers, it works best if my paintbrush pulls towards me. So just so you know, I had to turn my paper there so that I would be able to see my kitty or pull the brush towards me, and it wouldn't be a big blob on his face. The whiskers stayed nice and small. I'm sure after I get a little bit more practice in, I will be able to fix that. So there on my butterflies, I forgot to wait for it to dry, so it kind of bled out a little bit. So I stopped and I let it dry, and then I'm come back and I'm adding those in there. But since it feathered out, I decided I would go ahead and just give the butterfly wings some little decorations in there. This is probably not anything like what a real butterfly looks like, but I just wanted them to have a little bit of something to take over where that paint had bled out on their body and not look so weird. So I just went ahead and give them some little bubbles or some little lines and stuff and some little decorations on their wings. Then I'm just going to go ahead and let this dry, and we are going to put our card together. All right, so I went ahead and cut everything out. I don't have a cutter in my video room, so I just cut everything out before I got started. I'm using the paper from the Bee's Knees paper pad, so if you want to pick that up, I'll put a link to that down in the description box. And I only used the one sheet. I decided that I didn't want to waste it, so I'm going to go ahead and put the little piece that I cut off there on the back. The little Ric Rac thing is the Stitch Ric Rac by My Favorite Things. That is a new die, and I did pick up two, so if you want to grab that one, it's over in the store. I'll put a link to that also in the description box. It's really cute. I can see me using that more than one time. And then the little die there is a square trio shaker window. I think it'd be perfect. It's made for shaker cards, but I decided today that I was just going to put the pieces back in and then pop up the little die so that it looks more like a frame instead of doing the shaker bits. Sorry, I forgot to show you that die in the start there. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut out some foam tape. I got my foam tape on a roll, so I'm just trimming it down to little pieces so that I can stick it right on the back of my shaker bit there, or my frame, and then I don't have to cut it later on. And it's wide enough that I could cut 4 strips and it fit perfectly on the back of my card. And then the little pieces that I cut off, I'm going to use on the back of my cat. So worked out pretty good. So now I'm just going to go ahead and peel the tape off, and then I'm going to pop that up on my card. And this, with the little white pieces on the back there, it will make it look like a frame. And sorry, I got my head in there. I was trying to bend over far enough that I could see that it was lined up. Now I'm going to go ahead and decide where I want my kitties to go and which direction. And since I popped it up, I'm going to go ahead and pop up a little bit of my kitty, and then I just put a liquid adhesive on there, and I'm going to stick that down and let it dry. Same for this kitty. Since he's leaning over the window, I went ahead and gave him some foam dots and a little bit of glue. And well, this one here is not going to need foam dots because he's mostly on the edge, so I'm just going to glue him straight on there. And don't they look so cute? And they came with the dies, so that was perfect. I went ahead and cut out my little butterflies too with the dies. Those were a little more difficult though, because there's a few butterflies in the stamp set, and finding the right one for that one that was folded was a little bit more complicated. So I went ahead and I stamped my sentiment from the Purrrfect Sentiments stamp set with some Ranger super fine white detail embossing powder on some Raven black cardstock. So anyway, guys, if you have a question, leave me a comment down below and I'll make sure to get back to you. I'll post some videos or some pictures over on the store blog if you'd like to see some close-ups or more details on the card. I will put a link to that down in the description box. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. It really helps my channel. Don't forget, I'll list everything I use down in the description box. And right about now, you should be seeing a screen with a couple more videos I thought you might be interested in. If you are, just click on either one and it will take you straight there. Otherwise, I hope you're having a fabulous day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.